Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I am back with another tier list. It had been a minute since I've done a tier list on this channel, but we have returned. And in today's tier list, I'm going to be ranking Barcelona's top summer transfer targets. These 9 players have all been heavily linked or rumored to Barcelona over the past couple days, weeks, months, or even some of them years, man, whether it's by the fans or by the media or by the club themselves. And today we're going to talk about these guys, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion, whether I believe they should be a priority for Barca, whether Barca should maybe look to bring them in, or whether I don't want to see them anywhere near the club. Again, this is just my personal opinion, and I understand that these guys, not all of them are going to come to Barca, if any of them are going to come to Barca. These are just rumors, the guys that I've seen be rumored the most. So again, do not shoot the messenger. I'm not saying Barca are going to get Rafael Leao or Kvaratskhelia or Bernardo Silva. What I am saying is I've seen the rumors out there, and I'm going to tell you guys whether I want to see them in a Barca shirt next year or I don't want to see them in a Barca shirt next year, or whether maybe I do want to see them in a Barca shirt next year. Obviously, you guys see the tiers right there. And yeah, we're going to talk about it today. Whether you guys agree or disagree, please let me know in the comment section down below. And yeah, man, let's look, enough yapping. Let's just get into this video. First up, we have Joshua Kimmich, who plays obviously for Bayern Munich currently, who has been linked to Barca over the past, year and a half or something. Xavi really wants Joshua Kimmich, and the rumor has been heating up about him being the top DM target for Barcelona and for Xavi. He to me is going to go into maybe he should not be a priority for Barca, especially not at the DM position. The biggest position of need for Barca this summer, we all know this, is the DM, the pivot. Okay, and Joshua Kimmich, he's not a pivot. His best position is a fullback. And the fact that Barca are so eager, which baffles me, but they're so eager to want to get rid of Frenkie de Jong to bring in Joshua Kimmich, who's just an older version of Frenkie de Jong, is baffling to me, bro. I don't understand what's the obsession with Joshua Kimmich. The reason why I'm putting it in maybe is because Joshua Kimmich still has a world-class skill set. He can play as a, look, Barca can play him as a fullback as well. Barca obviously need fullback depth at times, and if you can't do a job at the end, you can play him at fullback every now and then. So obviously, he's still a very, very good player. I'm not going to sit here and say that Joshua Kimmich is not a world-class or near world-class talent, because we've seen over the past couple years against Arsenal in the UCL, the second leg at the Allianz Arena, he was fantastic in that game. So he has his moments, obviously. I'm not going to sit here and act like Joshua Kimmich is a bum. But this whole, we need Joshua Kimmich, he's the only DM that we want, when he's really not that type of DM, it's weird to me. Again, the obsession with Joshua Kimmich is very, very weird. Again, I'm putting him in maybe because Barca could use a guy like this because he could add squad depth and he has a lot of quality still. But as a DM target, he should not be our number 1 priority. He should just be nowhere near our number 1 priority, because I believe we can get a lot better players for cheaper than Joshua Kimmich. How much are Bayern Munich realistically going to want for Joshua Kimmich? Upwards of 60, 70 million, maybe even more than that. Because he's not old. I mean, what is he, like 30, 29? So he's not an old man by any stretch, but by any means. So again, for me, I don't think Joshua Kimmich is a bad player. I don't want to make it seem like I think that way. But as a top DM target, we could do better than this, man. Because like I said, Joshua Kimmich is really not a DM. Against Real Madrid, he plays as a right back. He's a better right back than he is a DM. That's just the fact of the matter. So for me, again, as a DM, the position that Barca need the most, that we cannot afford to swing and miss on this transfer window, Barca must get the pivot right. If you swing and miss on the pivot, you're fucked. And I don't think Joshua Kimmich is going to be the guy that's going to come in and change and transform that position for us. So again, for me, he's going to go into maybe he should not be a priority for Barca. But again, I'm not going to sit here and shit on him too much, because as a talent, as a player, he's really, really good. Let's be honest. That's why there's a reason why he starts for one of the best teams in the world. Next up, we have Kvaratskhelia, who to me is going to go into no. If you would have asked me back in January, do you want Kvaratskhelia at Barca? I would have said an emphatic yes. Because Barca we just didn't have a good left winger. We had no good options over there because Rafinha wasn't at his best, and Ferran and Joao Felix are just too inconsistent. Obviously, Barca's right-hand side is sealed. It's Lamine Yamal. He's going to be a right winger for the foreseeable future. But then again, it's always good to have depth on the wings, and Barca are lacking that, especially with Ousmane Dembele leaving us last summer. But here's the thing with Kvaratskhelia. I'm not that convinced with him anymore. I saw him this year for Napoli. I saw him play against us, and he can be neutralized too easily. And I just don't think that he's a guy that I want to see. I want to bring in, especially for the price tag that he's gonna garner. I mean, here's the thing: there's always the caveat with Barca of price tag. How much are these guys gonna cost? And Kvaratskhelia, if he was on a free, sure, bring him in. But we're going to have to pay maybe 100 million for this guy, because he's young and very promising. We saw him a year and a half, 2 years back when Napoli won the Scudetto. He was one of the most promising young players in the world, along with Victor Osimhen, of course. But I just don't think Kvaratskhelia should be a priority for Barca this summer. Not whatsoever. We need a winger, but I wouldn't go after Kvaratskhelia because, again, like I said, he's going to be really, really expensive. And I like the job that Rafinha's done on the left. You still have Ferran Torres. You still have Victor Roque you can play on the left. Maybe I don't know if you're going to loan him out now, but Victor Roque can do a job on the wing as well. And obviously you have the guys at La Masia who you could probably bring up, and they could do a job there as well. But again, Barca need a winger, but I wouldn't necessarily go after Kvaratskhelia because he's going to be really expensive. And to me, if we're going to get an expensive winger, might as well go for another guy on this list we're going to see very shortly here. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it, but you guys are going to probably know who that is. He also plays in Serie A, spoiler alert right there. But yeah, if we're going to go expensive, let's just go all out. But if we're going to spend 100 million for a guy like Kvaratskhelia, it just wouldn't make me comfortable. So again, I'm going to put him in no, but I don't think he's a bad player, but just should not be a priority for Barca this summer at all. Next up, we have Guido Rodriguez, who's basically already sealed to be a Barca player next summer. Xavi really wants him. It looks like Barca and Betis have agreed on a fee for him and that they've spoken with his agent already. So for me, he's going to go into maybe. He's just not a priority for me. Similar to Joshua Kimmich, Guido is like the profile that we had with Romeo last summer. A guy who plays in La Liga, who's a good pivot, but obviously not an elite level pivot, and you bring him in for depth. We thought that Romeo was going to do a job there. In the first few games of the season, he was. Romeo was a really good player for the first, 3 or 4 games, and then he fell off a cliff. And Guido, look, he's going to be good for squad depth because obviously you always need more depth in that position specifically because Barca have no DMs currently, so the more that you can bring in and build that depth is the better, obviously, the more the merrier. But as a pivot target, he should not be our main priority. Like, if this is the guy that Laporta's bringing in as like his marquee pivot signing, we're fucked next season. I'm telling you guys right now, we are fucked going into next season because this guy is really not going to do much for us. He's a good player, but he leaves a lot to be desired. And also, to me, there's so many other good pivots on the market. So, again, if this is the guy that Barca are going to bring in to be the main pivot, it's just not looking good. But as a player who brings in squad depth and who can obviously do a job in that role, sure. But that's the same thing we thought with Romeo last summer. We thought, we'll play Frankie de Jong as a pivot, we'll play a Gundo, Frankie de Jong double pivot, and then Romeo can do a job when he needs to. And it turns out Romeo can't do a job. Every time he goes into the game, he sabotages the team. So again, I hope that's not the case with Guido Rodriguez, but I've seen it already. I saw it this year with Romeo, a guy obviously in La Liga who played well. Obviously, Romeo at Girona last season, he was actually really, really good. And then comes to Barca, and the lights are too bright, and he just completely falls off a cliff. I hope that doesn't happen with Guido, but again, as a guy who's, I'm going to say it one more time because it's important that you guys understand. As a guy who brings in depth, sure. But as a top pivot signing, no, absolutely not. I do not want to see that. And if Barca if we start the season in August with this guy as our starting pivot, and we get rid of Frankie de Jong, oh my God, I'm going to lose my shit. I'm going to lose my shit if that's what happens. But again, I trust Joan Laporta. I trust Xavi. The reason why he says because Joan Laporta promised him a top pivot signing. So for me, I wouldn't bring him in. I wouldn't bring him in as a top guy, but as a guy who could just come in and do a job, sure, we'll put him in maybe for that reason. Next up, we have Bernardo Silva, who to me is going to go into priority. And I've changed my mind on Bernardo Silva over the past couple days. Because look, man, I understand that Bernardo Silva is going to be really expensive and that he's 30 years old. I understand that, man. But here's what I've noticed watching these teams in the UCL over the past couple weeks, ever since Barca got out, watching teams in Europe overall. You need individual game winners. And Bernardo Silva is that. He's simply one of the best players in the world who's played under a coach who we trust. Obviously, he's played under Pep for the past, 4 or 5 years. So we know this guy's going to come in and be polished. He's not going to make silly mistakes. And again, Bernardo can play as a cam, he can play as a CM, he can play on the wing. He can play a multitude of different positions. And you need depth. And look, I know that Barca have a stacked midfield already. I mean, we have a lot of midfield depth, obviously with Fermin, with Gavi, with Pedri, and you don't want to take playing time away from those guys, and especially out on the wing, you have Lamine Yamal, and Bernardo's more comfortable playing as a right winger, obviously. So again, you don't want to take playing time away from those guys, but this is a guy who, if you insert him into your team, you're going to get better. Like, your ceiling is going to get higher because Bernardo Silva is simply, like I said, one of the best players in the world. He's an amazing dribbler. He's a fantastic playmaker, and he understands the game. And I think he would be a perfect player for Xavi. Obviously, Xavi's staying next season. I think he would be a Xavi-type player. We saw what happened with Gundogan when he came in from Man City. And again, it's different circumstances because Gundogan, he came in on a free. Bernardo Silva's not going to come in on a free. They're going to want a lot of money for him. And I understand that, man. But if we can get back to the one-for-one rule, I wouldn't mind selling Frankie de Jong and bringing in Bernardo Silva. I wouldn't mind that. Again, people might think I'm crazy, but I do think that Bernardo Silva he's an amazing player, bro. And every time I watch Man City, I'm like, why doesn't this guy get mentioned as one of the best players in the world? When I did my top 10 best players in the world, I didn't mention Bernardo Silva. And I was like, why didn't I mention this guy? Because he's so fucking good. He's so good. He's an engine for that team. And Man City has simply been one of the most successful teams in Europe, or the most successful team in Europe over the past, 5 years? So again, I think Bernardo, I've changed my opinion on him. At first, I was like, I don't want him because he's old and he's going to be expensive. But man, he's just like, you need individual match winners, and that's what he is. He's an individual match winner, and he's a veteran. And he's a guy who knows what it's like to win, similar to Ilkay Gundogan. So I think he can come into this team and do a lot for us. Again, you don't want to take playing time away from Gavi or Pedri or Fermin or Lamine Yamal, but unfortunately in football there's injuries. And we know that Pedri's injury history. Gavi's obviously coming off an ACL. So it's not guaranteed that those guys are going to play 60 games next season or even close to that. So if you can get a guy like Bernardo Silva who can come in and do a job for you, more than a job actually, because like I said, he's an amazing player in my opinion, then you're looking good. But again, I understand that Barca fans might be turned off. I might disagree with what I say because of the price tag. But I just think he's a fantastic player who, if Barca want to contend for those big trophies, you need a guy like this, and he could definitely do a job for us. Next up, we have Nico Williams. He, to me, is priority. I love Nico Williams so much, man. He would be so good for depth in this team, and he gets along with the young Spanish players as well. I mean, he has connections with those guys already because obviously all those guys played together. Him and Lamine Yamal seem to be really good friends. Obviously, that's apart from the football, but that obviously matters when you're bringing in a guy to a new team. He already has a rapport with his teammates. And I just think Nico Williams is such a good player. Look, is he a finished product? No, he does make a lot of bad decisions every now and then. But I've seen a lot of Barca talking about how he's a mediocre player. He's far from a mediocre player. He's a fantastic player. This guy can create so many mismatches out on that wing. And I really like Nico Williams' profile. Again, he's not fully polished because he's in his early 20s. No player in their early 20s is fully polished. Not even Messi was. But again, I'm not comparing Nico Williams to Messi, but you understand what I'm saying. But I do think that Nico Williams is a guy who... Would I rather spend 110 million on Kvaratskhelia, which is what probably Napoli is going to ask for, maybe 100 million, or would I rather spend 50 to 55 to 60 maybe even million on Nico Williams? Give me Nico Williams every night and day. Give me Nico Williams every single night and day. This guy would be a dream signing for me. I love Nico Williams as a player. I think he's fantastic. And every time I watch Bilbao play, there's a guy who causes havoc. He scored against us in the Copa del Rey, in the quarterfinals. I mean, this guy and his brother, obviously Iñaki Williams, they have a great story. That's his name. Yeah, Iñaki. I don't know why I thought that was... No, obviously, I was thinking of Iñaki Peña, and I thought I got him confused. Iñaki Williams, obviously, these guys have a great story. And they just, like I said, I just think he's a really, really good player. This is my dream winger for Barca. Again, looking at budget and all that stuff, this is my dream winger for Barca. Nico Williams, I think he's fantastic, and I would love to see him wear the red and blue next season because, like I said, he has a rapport with the young players. He's a very, very good player who Xavi can polish him a little bit and turn him into an elite level winger, which he has that potential. And I think if we get this guy, it's gonna be very scary. Next up, we have Amadou Onana. I'm gonna put him in no. Here's the thing with Onana, man. He's been heavily linked to Barca over the past couple months because apparently this is the guy that Deco wants. Deco wants this guy. He wants Onana from Everton. Onana is a very, very good defensive pivot, okay? He provides a lot of things defensively. He's very physical. He's very big. He wins those duels. But on the ball and his dribbling, he's probably worse than Romeo. And at Barca, you just can't have that. Premier League football, and especially playing at Everton, is very different than playing at Barcelona. And Everton might get relegated this season. Again, I know the point deduction has a lot to do with that. But this is a guy who, if you're going to dish out 80 million for this guy, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. Because again, like I said, Barca need the Barca way, whether we like it or not as fans, it's still very much alive. And you need a very specific type of profile to play for Barcelona. And I don't think Onana fits that profile. Again, if you want to, I would have rather brought him in instead of Guido Rodriguez because I think he can provide more of like a varied skill set of that position. But again, Guido, I put him in maybe because he's coming in no matter what. But Onana, like I said, when it comes to on the ball and his dribbling, he's just not there. Physically, he's very, very gifted. I mean, this guy's a fucking tank. He's a machine, okay? But unfortunately for me, I don't think he would fit the Barca system. And again, I don't think he's the guy that Xavi wants. And why would you bring in a guy that the manager doesn't want? We saw that with Vitor Roque. You bring in a guy that the manager doesn't want, and he's not going to play him. So again, for me, Onana, he's a very talented player. He might go to, I think he's been linked to Arsenal, I'm pretty sure, or like some big Premier League teams. But I think his play style is best suited for the Premier League rather than La Liga, because La Liga is a very technical league, especially at Barcelona. I don't think his play style suits that much. Next up is Dani Olmo, who to me is gonna go into no. Dani Olmo has been heavily linked to Barca over the past couple of days. Apparently, Barca are ready to pay his release clause of 60 million because we know how much Barca love to dick ride former La Masia players. Dani Olmo spent some time at La Masia. He actually spent a lot more time. He spent like 7 years at La Masia. First of all, started at Espanyol, then went to La Masia. He's obviously from Catalonia, and we know how much Barca love those Catalonia ties when it comes to players. But this guy, to me, look, here's the thing with Dani Olmo. He's very versatile. He can play on the left wing, he can play on the right wing, he plays a cam, he can play as a second striker. He like his versatility is there. But this is a guy who averages like 20 games a season. He gets injured so much, and the price tag is just not worth it, man. Why are you bringing in an injury-prone player when Barca are already kind of an injury-prone team? It doesn't make any sense to me. He's just not the type of guy that Barca need right now. I don't see the obsession with Dani Olmo. I really don't get it. Again, it's probably because he's Spanish. Okay? Because we know, like I said, Xavi loves a good Spanish talent. But I don't see the need to bring in a guy like Dani Olmo who is very similar. Like, people have been calling him Ferran 2.0, and I kind of agree with that, bro. He's very similar to Ferran. And I just don't want Dani Olmo. I don't want Dani Olmo. Again, nothing against the guy, but a guy who's very injury prone. I don't think he would suit Barca personally. Again, his play style will definitely suit Barca because he's a former La Masia talent, like I said, and he knows how to play the Barca way, whatever that means. But I just don't think he's the guy that Barca needs as a priority right now, or a guy who should even be a maybe. Because again, I think Dani Olmo just leaves a lot to be desired in my opinion. He's just not the guy that I would want to see come in for that. Like if this is gonna be our guy that we bring in, this is gonna be our marquee signing for the summer. We're fucked. I'm not a fan of Dani Olmo. Next up, we have Martin Zubimendi. Priority. This would be my dream summer right here. This right here. These two would be my dream summer. Not even so much Bernardo Silva, but I would obviously love that as well. But Zubimendi and Nico Williams will fix so much for this team. Zubimendi's so good, man. Oh my God, he's the opposite of Onana, where he's a lot more technically gifted. Zubimendi on the ball, they call him the Busquets region, and that's very true because on the ball, he is fantastic. He's so good at alleviating the press. Oh my God, this guy's amazing. What a player he is. And he's 25 years old. He's still so young, man. He's so young. This should be if we bring in this guy, I would suck Joan Laporta's cock. I'm not even, pause, but you're fucking disgusting. God, man, I'm sorry about that. I just got really carried away with that. I'm not going to do that, guys. I promise you I'm not. And I'm sorry if that made you uncomfortable because it made me uncomfortable saying it out loud. But again, this is for people who stayed this long into the video. I'm sure most people have clicked off by now. But if you saw this, just pretend you didn't. If you heard that, just pretend you didn't hear that. But anyway, Zubimendi's fantastic, man. He's fantastic. Here's the one thing with Zubimendi. In terms of like his build, he's not very much like Busquets because Busquets is 6'2", 6'3". Busquets is very tall, and obviously as a DM, you want a tall player. Zubimendi's not short by any means. He's 5'11". Again, that's not even close to short, but for a DM, you ideally want a guy that's a little bit over, like a 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", around that height. And he makes up for that with his technical ability. And there's a guy who's been coached under Imanol Wasil, who's a very good coach in my opinion over the past couple of years. There's talks that Arsenal are going to want him. There's talks that maybe other Prem teams are going to want him. Maybe even some teams in La Liga. He's talked about he doesn't want to leave Real Sociedad because he's very loyal to that team. Whatever that is, I would dish out up to 80 million for Zubimendi. I would get rid of Frankie de Jong to bring in Zubimendi, 100%. If we get rid of Frankie de Jong, but we bring in Zubimendi, I'm happy. I'm happy if that's the case. Because again, like I said, this guy is a fantastic talent and a very, very good player. And I would love to see him wear red and blue next year because I just think he's so good. He is my dream pivot signing for Barca. Zubimendi, 100%. I want to see him on the Barca shirt next year because like I said, this guy technically, he really is Busquets 2.0 and he fits the play style that Barca have. And he's a guy that Xavi wants. Xavi doesn't want Onana. And Xavi, whether we like it or not, obviously you guys know how I feel about it. Whether we like it or not, he's the coach next year. And it's better to bring in guys that he actually wants instead of just giving him guys that he doesn't want and he's just not going to end up playing. So Deco, bring this guy in. Stop trying to bring in your targets because you're not the fucking coach. Bring in Zubimendi because Xavi wants him and I want Zubimendi as well because this guy fits the Barca play style. He's an amazing player and he could unlock so many things for us next season, man. I promise you, just bring him in. Oh my God, he would change so much. And lastly, we have Rafael Leao, who as you can see is going to fall into the maybe category for me. Rafael Leao is a guy who I think is fantastic, man. He's such a good player. And this is a guy who I would want to see him come in more than Kvaratskhelia. The reason why I put him in maybe is because Barca obviously are not going to have the money to bring in Leao because he's going to be upwards of 120 million. He's simply one of the most promising young wingers in the world. But Rafael Leao is a guy who, he's a game wrecker. And again, when I'm talking about individual brilliance and individual quality, this is a guy who can wreck a game at any given moment. He's so good, he's so pacey, he's so physical. He's just that, like, he's an ideal winger for me. Again, Barca are not going to get him, but if we're going to pick between Kvaratskhelia and a dream world, if we have to pick between Kvaratskhelia and Rafael Leao, I would rather bring Rafael Leao because, again, like I said, I think this guy could just not even add depth because to me he would be a starter. I think he's better than Rafinha. He would be a starter on that team. Would he start like would Rafinha move to the right and you put Lamine Yamal on the bench, or you have? I mean, if you could have a rotation of wingers of Lamine Yamal, Lamine Yamal, Rafael Leao, Rafinha, and Ferran Torres or Joao Felix, you're looking pretty good, man. You're looking really, really good in that sense when it comes to the winger spot, which you know Barca desperately want to have more depth in. But again, like I said, it's going to be rare. It's going to be hard, almost impossible to bring in a guy like Rafael Leao. But if Barca could do it, I would 100% be on board. And that, guys, is the end of the video. I appreciate you guys all for watching. Thank you so much. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, whether you agree or disagree. I would love to hear it. And also let me know what other targets you would want to see Barca, go after this summer, whether it's a pivot or a left back or a wing or whatever it is. Let me know in the comment section down below. I love to chat to you guys down there. And yeah, man, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.